Vault of Glass. The raid that I coined as the activity that saved Destiny. The raid that made Destiny's launch feel like it had a final piece of content to cement the game. A place where players of all kinds could use their best loot in the game to test themselves against Destiny's ultimate challenge. This raid was atmospheric to the core, with the environment being a part of the planet Venus, and the vault feeling like an infinite possibility of loot for the taking and challenges to take on. Secrets to discover, the winds passing through as this untouched haven of Vex were awakened at last. If you've watched my video on the Vault of Glass already, you know there is a story here that has been erased from time. Further advances of enemies trying to take it over, and an homage to the Vault of Glass years down the line. Aside from the story, the challenge of Vault of Glass was immense in its infancy due to a few factors. Number 1, raiding infancy. No first-person shooters had ever done raids before, and Vault of Glass was an ambitious one, hoisting 7 encounters to a player base not exactly prepared for something of this scale. The world's first team of Prime Guard took 14 hours to beat this raid, surprising everyone with how truly pinnacle this challenge was going to be. Loadouts were not the same as they were afterwards, with Monte Carlo, fusion rifles, and more used in that race. Race actually doesn't begin to describe the Vault of Glass, as this was more of a mystery and an under-the-radar challenge very few were ready to participate in. You gotta understand, a lot of people thought that Destiny was a first-person shooter first, and while that still may be true to some, only the people who had played MMOs or had experience in that field were ready for Vault of Glass. Well, I say ready very lightly. As all raids have in store, this one was beaten by the very same principles Atheon and company established. Time. Over time, the player base became smarter, over-leveled, watched a Rick Kakis guide, threw a banana peel at Atheon, and outgrew the challenge immensely. Vault of Glass may not have been the hardest challenge by the end of its times, but the player base that experienced it in its heyday knew of its greatness. This was why when I went on the record in that very same video to say that I did not want the Vault of Glass to return, I don't think the Vault of Glass should return, as we got to experience the best version of it already, and I want new experiences like it in the future, not more nostalgia as new content. I was afraid that the return of this raid would impact the legacy of the world's first teams before it. I was afraid this raid would not bring that same power fantasy of loot. I was afraid that the world's first race would not have the same glory, that the challenge would never live up to the excitement of what once was. Was I right, or was I wrong with this though? Well, there's only one way to find out. Welcome everyone to the return of the Vault of Glass.
There it is.
Oh, there it is!
Up left.
I wonder what this raid's from.
Okay, west side.
Oh, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
Awaken the glass throne.
I'm going to be out of this.
Some footage in this video is from players around the community. Their links will be in the description of this video, as well as music too. This video took a long time to make, with loads of pages of scripts, interviews, hundreds of hours of footage from the community, and a whole lot of editing. So consider subscribing and supporting the channel. If not, I'll erase you from time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the focus of this video is the Vault of Glass, so I won't keep you too long. Just a couple quick messages, so listen up. At the end of this video, we're going to talk about a Patreon that I started because YouTube wants a channel like mine to not really exist in 2021. It's honestly hard to keep up in the current climate of YouTube. And Patreon is where you can find the video of the unsolved mystery of Destiny 2's 15th wish right after this one. It's located there right now. We also have a limited time drop of Atrax 1 merch at the end of the video too. Links to those are in the description, and more information is at the end of this video. So please stay tuned for that. In these videos, especially community focused ones, I like to give you context as to why stakes were high, emotions higher, and challenge a true pinnacle. This is the first remastered raid in Destiny history, Vault of Glass. A raid I wasn't sure would encapsulate that pinnacle feeling of taking down Atheon once again. A raid that I felt could never live up to that original feeling of accomplishment a brand new raid brings to the table. Vault of Glass released on May 22nd, 2021 at 10 AM Pacific, a whole 10 days after Destiny's Season of the Splicer. Normally with new raid releases, there is some sort of major leveling grind to reach a certain point for raid prep. Vault of Glass would only require players to be level 1300 for a chance at the race. That is important because it meant that if players had been keeping up with the previous season of Destiny, Season of the Chosen, then there was no level grind needed at all. Sure, players could take advantage of the seasonal artifact by grinding some levels in the season, but no gear level past 1300 was needed to be ready for day one raiding. It makes you kind of wonder why Bungie waited 10 days to release the raid instead of the first weekend, but I'd venture to guess they wanted people to experience the new season first. Well, if you didn't have to nuke half your friends list to get on. Anyways, Vault of Glass was to be back on May 22nd with a nice silver belt to accommodate. Since it couldn't be a gold belt, this raid isn't exactly brand new. There was a lot of controversy on whether this belt should even exist, but Bungie adding a shared clan name of Prime Guard, aka Math Class, on the left was a nice nod to the first world's first team. This raid, of course, also had the 24-hour emblem, but that came with a catch. Not only did a team have to beat Vault of Glass with the contest modifier on, but then that team would have to go back into the raid and beat Tempo's Edge. A version of the Vault of Glass with hidden challenges to figure out with it. Your typical teams were racing, and at this point it's hard for me to include every clan, so I'll list some teams racing that have earned a world's first or have been close. You had Redeem, Math Class, Ascend, Luminous, Tier 1, Silumar, My Clan Obtained, and a clan that really was at the cusp of Deepstone Crypt before. Coming in second place in that raid, a clan named Elysium. Plenty of teams from around the world were all looking for a shot at the precious belt for Bungie's first ever returning raid. So with that being said, let's jump straight into day one.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Alrighty.
Put us in.
Going in.
Going in.
Yeah, all right, here we go, boys. I'm gonna take top right plate, cliff side.
I'll go top right as well.
Oh, please.
Go, 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 go.
Go, 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 go.
I can't get on my turtle. There we go. You have to like team that. Yeah, he's a bit of a tank, bro.
What's going on below?
Cyclops.
Ah, Venus. God, Venus looks pretty.
Right?
Welcome to the Vault of Glass. Again. In this video, I will not be talking in depth about mechanics since that was for the old video. This one is more focused on the raid and briefly talking about some changes that Bungie made to fit in 2021. One encounter that didn't really change at all was raising the Spire. There wasn't a patrol zone, so random people couldn't help you since Venus isn't a part of the main game of Destiny 2. But there was a 60 FPS cutscene. Yes, let's go. Some Cyclops, and of course, all of our Eververse dollars going to the remodel of this brand new door where the keyhole was actually centered. Oh, and one of the worst changes that Bungie made, and probably why this is now my least favorite raid, is that they've removed the arcade machine. You really do it to me, huh? Either way, teams were through this encounter very quickly.
Salvo for this, for the chain.
I'll cover this one right here.
Yep.
It's for the entire encounter.
That makes no sense. It doesn't respawn the same one twice.
two. There's one going middle. We're good. We're good. Go.
We good.
Right.
All right, me and Fitzy on the right. Let's go.
Freeze them all. They're called Wyvern, Overload Minotaur. I'm in my super. Somebody overload this.
Fuck these ads, bro.
Where is it?
The faster we kill the ads, the faster this will go. By the way, so if you put with their hordes on the doors.
Confluxes. The encounter that in Destiny 1 gave 0 rewards and was just defending a max of 3 towers from Vex sacrificing over a long waited time. Well, nothing really changed here at all in the remaster. Yeah, Bungie added some wyverns and some overload champions to deal with, but the encounters stayed just about the same. On day 1, players would notice that ads were beefier and harder hitting, but unlike Destiny 1's release of Vault of Glass, players in Destiny 2 have established strong mods like Protective Light, Concussive Dampener, Melee Resist, and more. That all stacks together, so tanking shots for day 1 raiders is a lot more doable than it was when nobody understood the game or had anything weapon or gear wise close to level of the Vault of Glass enemies. Stack on blinding grenade launchers and players steamrolled the Confluxes just like the first encounter. Just gotta watch out for those wyverns. Oracles, on the other hand,
I got two. Oh, you got two?
You can take a sneak.
Most likely. Alright, so barrier.
It's immune? Oh, wait.
It's the first round.
Yeah.
So if it's barrier, what's barrier? Auto rifle and
Scout.
scout. Okay. Okay. Left side.
Oh, shoot him.
Wait, they create Warmind Souls.
You have to shoot them in order. Listen to the tones.
Did we fuck up?
Yes, we're marked.
Immune.
Wait, well, I think that was just to like give us like where they're gonna spawn.
Could be.
Oh,
It's the
yeah,
sound
they get
effect thing.
spawned, Okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, I can
Mid
hurt
right.
them on right side. I got
Marked by an oracle.
already.
Oh,
I have to
wait.
cleanse. Go on to cleanse. Why did
Yeah,
I
I'm
get
cleansing
marked
as
so
well.
fast?
Uh-oh.
I can't cleanse. I'm
Oh,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna get negated.
Did we not get an oracle? Is that what we got marked?
Oracles had some changes, and this is where the race went from every team close together to a few teams pulling ahead. Oracles used to work by having 7 rounds of yellow lights with different pitch to them. Oracles had no set order to them, just callouts of locations to be shot. Now, Bungie made them not yellow! Oh, and teams have to shoot the correct order, while those sniper hobgoblins shot from a distance, just like in Destiny 1. If one of these blue oracles was shot out of order, the team needed to cleanse in the center pool or be killed by the Templar, with a max of 3 cleanses till the team would be wiped. Now, I say this is where teams started to fall behind because unless you had an order count of 1, 2, 3 as the sounds of the oracles came up in order, or unless you were a music theory major, you probably weren't getting this one down first try. Some teams would struggle here for a while, actually.
In the middle.
Order immune? Oh,
Yeah,
We're blue. Left.
They're blue.
Oracles in
Marked by an oracle.
I'm marked.
We didn't
relic?
kill one. We didn't kill one.
You can go to the middle, I guess, before we die.
I'm dead.
Paraplegic Ziggy.
I was pouring a drink. What the f?
Whoa!
Okay, 1, 2.
R3 is 3.
I'm on 4.
L3 is 2. L3 is 2.
I'm on 4.
I have 1 and 2, I think.
I think I need to go to middle. Very fast.
Yeah.
Expeditiously.
Okay, I can get two. So we'll break. Let me know when you break yours.
It's not up yet.
Yeah, it'll be up now. Now we get two.
Okay. I'm getting one. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I got
Okay,
it.
I'm breaking two. Broke two.
Moople, I was before you.
This encounter came down to pure communication, and everyone really had a part to play. No teammate just killing ads, and no teammates just listening for orders. Everyone had to pitch in. Please laugh. At the start, there were 3 oracles to shoot, but by the end, there were 7 to shoot. Is it samey? Sure. But is it the better version? Yes, absolutely. There isn't a ton of downtime like in the original. People can't just sit at the back of the map either, and on contests, those ads were actually a little tricky to deal with. One thing that's important for Vault of Glass's raid race is that teams knew, sort of, what to expect. So every competitive team was around the same mark by now, but it would simply come down to a few small adjustments slowing some teams down. For normal mode, we're talking a 1 wipe difference per encounter to start the disparaging. So it's very hard to tell who was ahead at this point, but you can assume the teams we listed were all together after oracles. Once all 7 oracles were shot, the chest spawned and so did the iconic Vex relic.
All right, there's my translog bounty.
I think they
That's the encounter. That's the encounter. That's the encounter.
All right, swap the slug.
Pick it up. Get ready for blocking as well. Just look
There are
around
gonna
the
be
oracle.
two oracles that spawn.
Yeah, he doesn't hit too hard. You can take a few shots from him.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay on Caesars, I think.
I'm gonna stay over here on this left side and block ports. Okay. As much as I can, anyway.
It was time to meet the raid's first boss. Templar, the encounter that once again was in the same space as Confluxes and Oracles. The Templar in Destiny 1 worked by having a spawn of 2 oracles at a time, then popping a super and getting straight to damage, blocking teleports from the boss to extend the damage, and breaking yourself and everyone around you out of detainment bubbles. Pretty simple, right? Lots of changes to come, surely. Well, not really. But also, it makes sense too? Templar in Destiny 2 now worked by using 3 oracles and having the team still shoot them in the correct order. Then the relic holder popping a super on the boss. Now the difference here was that the Templar only detained 1 player at a time, and that detained player could not break their own detain. Also, the Templar had more spots to teleport, and if the damage phase took a while, would summon an army of Minotaurs. This encounter to me was the check for some day 1 raiders, and separated teams that wanted to goof around and play the raid opening day, and teams that were focused on getting the day 1 raid emblem. The reason I say this is because Templar was chaotic. You might get too tempted to do damage and forget about all the ads, the oracles, the detains, the teleports, the boss damage all at once. You might get caught out of position and lose track of which oracles to shoot and the order of them. You just might not have had enough damage and have to come to terms with having one very long and tedious fight, reminiscent of Atrax from Deepstone Crypt. Just like oracles as well, communication was key here. Who was detain break duty? Who was on ad clear? Who was damage? These were all important questions in preventing a wipe and clearing this encounter in a good time. This is also where I can definitively say leads were starting to be pulled from normal mode with Elysium, Redeem, Tier 1, Silumar, Ascend, and Math class all tightly fighting in the race. This is also where I can say Reddit was not happy about the raid, making it a clear point that the Templar was apparently too hard. Once through the struggle, and with good communication along the way, players took down this almighty Hydra.
I only have ammo.
What was the stun behind? Over here.
That R3, L3,
L1.
What was it?
Well, new will.
Glass gonna die. Glass gonna die. Go down. Go down. Go down.
New will. Nova Bond.
Yeah, that's good.
rest. You can get
okay,
rest.
okay,
Somebody
okay.
grab me. Somebody grab me. I'm very sick.
I can get him. Okay.
Super.
Let's go. He's almost dead.
I'm stuck.
It's gonna die.
Finish him. Where's his
Back right behind you.
We got it.
We got it.
Oh, he's solo. He got him.
Nice. Go.
I died, but it's okay.
It's fine. Go through mid.
It's fine.
Okay,
It's fine.
Good job.
Now, here's the thing. Bungie had slightly altered some mechanics for the day one race for everything else. So the Gorgon's maze and the jumping puzzle surely had to have some differences, right? Haha! I got you! You see how I phrased that sentence? You really thought there was going to be a difference, but with my juxtaposition, you were preparing for the disappointment that there is zero differences in the Gorgon's maze, and if anything, they are actually less threatening than they used to be.
A tactical surplus vorpal.
Why? Stop sprinting here. Just walk by him to the right. Oh.
You see nothing?
What? They just fucking past two of them.
They don't need to know anything.
They're so dumb.
No shot, dude.
Gorgons were not changed, except the path to get the chest. But we'll have to save the loot talk for later. We got a race to focus on. Instead of the Gorgons and the jumping puzzle being different, these were very much the same, and with Destiny 2's jumping tech, there really wasn't much of a jumping puzzle for your day one raiders. But there was going to be a puzzle for our next encounter, as this one I believe had the most amount of change in the entire raid. Meet the new glass throne. Behind the classic amazing door, and redone absolutely masterful for Destiny 2.
Awaken the glass throne.
Aw, shit.
God.
Gatekeeper? There's a gatekeeper? He's keeping gates?
Looks so good.
All this right here, you can hardly see any of that actual like vault glass crap up there.
This room feels
so much smaller. Holy crap.
We're doing it one side at a time, right?
Yeah, we can.
Alrighty.
Let's focus left side first.
Okay, we'll do it.
If Gorgons and the jumping puzzle were completely unchanged from the original, then Gatekeeper had the complete opposite treatment. In Destiny 1, this encounter had 3 relics, one in the glass throne, one in Venus side or the past, and one in Mars side or the future side. Then the players would meet in the middle to kill some Praetorians, making it a very short encounter for raiders after that day 1 initial boom of difficulty. In Destiny 2, this encounter has become a relay race where each player must pass the relic to another player. Once you kill the initial Gatekeeper, the goal becomes taking down Praetorians that have immune shields from weapons, unless you have certain ones, which we'll talk about later, requiring the relic to be the killer. Every time one dies to the relic then had to be passed to other players in the portal, allowing them to get through, as once you made it through a portal, there was a long cooldown before you could go back through. The other part was that after the Praetorian died, a wyvern spawned pretty quickly after, leaving someone on day 1 to usually solo this chicken little shit or get sent to the stratosphere by its raw girth. Once doing an ungodly amount of rotations, dealing with the Overload champion Minotaurs outside as well, the encounter ended the same way Gatekeeper ended in Destiny 1. The center conflux needing to be defended from more chicken shits and Minotaurs with shields. This was a test of true patience and execution on day 1, with contests not having these enemies mess around, and with players having to solo their wyverns. It meant that if someone was not capable of soloing it, the run would have been a wash. Especially deep into the encounter. This was the encounter where I can confidently say Elysium started to get some momentum on their side. After only 3 attempts total at this encounter, they were done. Moving on to the most iconic fight in 2014, and the fight most of you have been waiting for. Atheon.
Yeah, that's what I did on top.
Okay.
Just call them out. Just call them out.
Alright, Crush. Alright, Crush got it.
Crush these portals.
Just call them out where they're at. We're good.
Oh no.
Going in on you.
Finish this bitch.
Yeet. Oh my god, he's gone. Let's go, baby.
What are we thinking?
Loot up and go.
Welcome to Atheon 2, Oracles Boogaloo. Oh yeah, we got more Oracles, baby! Atheon was actually a pretty simple encounter that teams on day 1 would either get down very fast or treat it like Last Wish's Riven fight on day 1 and make mirrored callouts for their teammates. Let's quickly bust down some differences from 2014 here. Atheon used to work by sending 3 people in at random to either future past, Mars Venus, left right, whatever you want to call it. Atheon sent 3 players in, and the goal was to roll over some oracles with no order to it and kill a few adds, putting eye drops in for the players with the relic, and then going back through the portal for damage with infinite supers. Players on the outside just had to kill some supplicants and raise a plate to open the teleporter of the correct side for their teammates. Cool. So Atheon in 2021 worked pretty much the same, except Oracle callouts were outside the teleporters, and there were 3 rounds of 3 callouts to be shot in order. On day 1, an observant team would immediately note that the main glass throne room was the same exact layout as the teleport rooms. So when you teleported, the goal for the Oracle callouts should have been to run to the back of the room and shoot the Oracles from there. But not everyone did that.
Gatekeeper. Last.
Good.
Going
All I
portal.
have is
Sell
the
back
linear
left,
fusion.
sell back left, sell back left.
I got a sell.
Yeah, we will.
Up here.
Come to me, Eddie.
Wait, why can't we open this
Come to me.
I need you to cleanse me.
I need to cleanse. I need to cleanse.
Wait, no, someone... Okay, what just happened?
Yeah. We got wave.
There are oracles outside now, not just inside.
So either you had to do the mental flip of what was being called out, or you grew up and ran to the back of the room. Now here comes the apparently controversial part of this encounter. Calling out the oracles. Some people will say 1 through 6. Others will say close and far of middle, left, and right. Some give them nicknames, and others just don't communicate at all, so you never get the correct portal for your teammates, and for the gamers, they called them this. What was your callouts for day 1? The best comment for callouts will be permanently cemented as the only correct one for the rest of Destiny 2. So make sure your callouts are correct. Anyways, once the callouts were made 3 times in a row and without a single mess up, I'm talking to you, buddy, it was time to move on to damage. Old Atheon had damage with infinite supers. New Atheon gave you some super, but not infinite. Still pretty damn similar. The difference for damage here was in the relic not needing to be really used for a shield since the Well of Radiance exists. Also, the relic has a much more forgiving window needing to be picked up, whereas Destiny 1's relic had a window so short that once you dropped it, you pretty much had to pick it up. Destiny 2's relic has a generous timer of 10 seconds. That, and the timer is also visible, unlike Destiny 1's internal relic timer. Why that's important is because that meant the relic holder could actually assist with DPS on Atheon, and trust me, on day 1, you were going to need the damage.
King needs a cleanse.
I got reapply.
I'm reapplying it.
Come on.
Just keep going.
Oh,
Fuck.
only I should have dropped the.
Wait, there's oracles. It was right middle left.
Nah, we're dead.
You're immune. I should have dropped the
relic.
The other new factor for damage was Atheon detaining the player just like the previous boss, Templar. Atheon summoned a red aura around one player, and that player had to jump away from the rest of the team or have their damage ruined / get everyone killed. Very reminiscent of Golgoroth's Cursed Thrall mechanic from the King's Fall raid. The only difference besides the visual indicator of who was being detained was that if this player made contact with anyone else in the group when the timer expired for them to be detained, they also would trap that player, so running the hell away if chosen was the strategy used. Well, by everyone except that one person. That person knows who they are. On day 1, Atheon would take around 4 damage phases on average to kill, and teams would fall behind here due to the mechanics being punishing. What I mean by that is shooting even one oracle out of order would be a wipe, and since this encounter was a long and tedious battle, it meant that if a team were to mentally slip up even once, they had to start the long journey all over again. So how did it go down for our team's racing?
Left, right, and forward. Or no, it's right, left, forward. Right, left, forward.
Okay.
Right, left.
Okay.
Yeah.
This.
Oh, it's gonna turn it around, guys. Turn it around. So it's gonna be this one.
Okay. This one. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Left. And then far.
We suck.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah, so far left, close right.
Okay. I think it's not.
That was far left.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's working.
And this is close left.
Yep.
And then that's close right.
I am.
Took too long.
We need a well on these plates if possible, or a bubble or something.
Like, how are you guys calling them? From spawn or from like from spawn?
Atheon.
P2, right stairs, middle stairs.
What was it?
P2,
right stairs, middle stairs.
Yeah.
Worst.
On left, right. Gatekeeper, spawn left, right.
Up.
I'm leaving.
my board a little
We are
early.
very far away from where we need to be.
I don't have a well. Careful, he will smoke you.
Can you drop it and reopen it, please? I can't see.
I don't know.
You got reason.
Sweet.
It's Mars, guys. Get on the plate.
So where is it? Stairs.
Stairs right, portal.
Right above us. Right above us.
Okay.
Yeah, well.
Well, I wasn't sure because stairs. I was confused at what stairs.
I thought
For one team though, not even Atheon was an issue.
Good shit. Let's go. Mid. We got this shit, boys. Keep it up. Get your anarchy on. Well down. Whoever's got the relic, be sure to drop it for anarchy.
I'm DPSing with shooting.
Did you hit anybody?
Imminent detain. No div.
No div.
I need fun, please.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm glancing.
Can you free me?
Okay, hands right.
Fuck. I literally can't see anything.
Damage,
Keep
damage.
hitting him. He hasn't stopped. Keep going.
Please.
Nice. Yes. Grab
Grab it, Rally.
Holy shit, do not leave that shit there. Hey, grab chest and let's do challenge mode.
I was DPSing.
Dude, no, but everybody jumped away. I turned around and that shit had 2 seconds left.
Wait.
Where's that with chest?
Approach.
Up here,
Or
up here.
just go to orbit. Just queue with the new thing. Fuck it.
I know,
it.
we need... Oh, approach?
I know,
Okay,
there's no
like that's a chest like Dipstone. Go to orbit.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
Enemy triumphs,
we got
enemy triumphs, go to orbit. Next thing.
I'm not fire team leader.
Team Elysium had won the world's first contest, normal mode, Vault of Glass. With a time of 1 hour and 43 minutes, Team Elysium's Kairos, Cruz, Slap, Quaz, Saltagrepo, and Moople defeated the Vault of Glass, a whole 40 minutes and 21 seconds ahead of the next team. Compared to Destiny 1's first ever raid of the same name, this Vault of Glass clear simply showed how far raiding has come. From using primary weapons for damage to the boss and not knowing at all what Bungie had planned for a raid, to now being pushed under level and still frying a race in an attempt to earn a belt with thousands racing against you and even more eyes watching, It's easy then to see that the Vault of Glass has grown with the very same player base it wished to erase back in 2014. A raid that once pushed the player base to its limits was now going to be pushed to its limits, because we are not done. Actually, this was only the first half of the race. Normal mode contest was the halfway mark of the race. There was still challenge mode of Tempo's Edge, and with one team this far ahead, one might think it would simply be over, but you would be very wrong. So let's jump straight back into the Tempo's Edge race and find out just how it went down. Over an hour and 45 minutes in, the first place normal mode team of Elysium jumped straight back into the raid. This time with a day one variant that only unlocked after a completion of normal mode was done. And this mode was called Tempo's Edge, only available for 24 hours total. Before we jump in here, I want you to understand the stakes of Tempo's Edge. Not only was this version of the raid the decider for the raid belt and the true first place winner in the overall race, this was also a true test of a team's patience, efficiency, and engineering brain to pull off. Destiny is a game known for its secrets as much as it's a game known for its secrets being data mined by its own community. The API of the game, or the application programming interface, is a part of the game Bungie shares with third-party applications. It's the reason why extensions exist and make moving items from players' vaults into their inventories a lot easier through apps like Destiny Item Manager. The other side of this is that it's really hard for Bungie to keep secrets from its community. Vault of Glass suffered this toll pretty harsh, but also not. Let me explain. Vault of Glass's raid weapons, emblems, shaders, and triumphs were known by the community since Season of the Splicer released on the previous Tuesday. However, just because the triumphs were known doesn't mean Bungie wasn't a step ahead on triumphs that mattered for day one. Even when the teams entered the raid and were met with the challenges that if conditions were not reached, the team would receive a challenge failed message on the screen and a wipe would ensue. What all this means for the teams going back into Tempo's Edge raid is that it was a race to solve these hidden challenges while also being mindful that taking time to solve the challenges gave teams behind them time to catch up. And even if you were to solve the challenge, that meant every team behind you in the race also had insight into the challenges as well, making it easier for them to get through it. So what I'm saying is that being ahead on normal mode actually didn't give you as big of an advantage going into Tempo's Edge as one might have thought. The stakes had officially been raised, and the race that was once not so close by the end of normal was now heating up for the second half. So we start back by the entrance of the Vault of Glass, where only one team sat at this point. 40 minutes ahead, Team Elysium had to zoom and learn on the fly. I'll skip until the first actual challenge here. The challenge here for Elysium was finding out what the challenge would be.
The next one. We have to win the next one. This one doesn't mean shit. This one does not mean shit. Okay, so let the wyverns start to sack before you kill them for confluxes.
It's kind of crazy that they had a general idea of what the challenge was going to be for confluxes before even reaching the room, even if there was another idea for a little bit.
Can somebody help clear it while we're dealing with this? Slap if you don't mind. Oh, wait, he's going on Slap. What the hell is he doing? Slap, watch out, watch out, watch out.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Don't anarchy it, or it may die before.
Fucking chasing me around.
I think it's fine.
Where'd it go?
Yeah,
It despawned.
Oh, it might just be you can't kill them. It might just be that we can't kill them.
Yeah.
We got Legion.
Okay.
So just don't kill them. Literally
Okay.
just try to ignore, like I'll tether them if I see it mid.
Overload champ in the middle.
So blinding nades, if we do that, are really
Yeah, if people have on blinding, like have at least one side.
Someone else
I have blinding.
Cyrus, do you have blinding?
I can swap to it right now. Just give me
I
a
can.
second.
Moopel, do you have it?
I got it.
Yes, the goal was to let the wyverns start a sacrifice, but kill them while doing so. So hurt them a little bit and not kill them until they walk up to the conflux and start to sacrifice. This took almost no time for Elysium, and they were on to the Oracles challenge with only one wipe on Confluxes. Oracles challenge was next on the chopping block to figure out and would take some quick thinking to tackle. Quaz was quick to come up with the strategy needed here though.
One done.
Challenge failed. We have to shoot a different Oracle each time. We'll have to rotate around most likely. Because we shot the same Oracle and we wiped. Yeah, the circle. So after you break an Oracle, move to the next one. Okay, so start with the same location. Like, I'll still worry about the 2 at the beginning. But if I break L1, then I'll move on to L2.
The goal here was simple. Everyone could only shoot one of the same Oracle. No repeats. So the plan was to shoot one, then rotate clockwise to the next round and break one in a different spot. But there were 7 Oracles for only 6 players. So that meant whoever was in the center actually took 2 Oracles instead of 1, keeping a mental track the whole way through, and rotating around the room the whole encounter. This very much was a great challenge to me, and this is where Bungie honestly nails challenges, since it teaches the player to actually learn how Oracles work and make proper use of communication. Elysium was through this challenge very quickly after figuring this one out.
5,
6.
come on.
7.
Okay.
Nice.
Stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. We haven't wiped yet. This is huge.
I think this is huge, yeah.
Fucking crack the Amber guys. Keep it up.
Okay, clear the ads, clear the ads. We gotta swap.
Yeah, just kill shit quick. Just kill shit quick. Kill the host.
We're done.
Anarchy snipe, anarchy snipe.
The Templar was next again for Team Elysium, and since they hadn't really taken any hits to the time yet, or allowed for other teams to really catch up, how would the Templar fare against them? There had to be a challenge worthwhile here. One that we had never seen before. Or one that was all too predictable. Well, the Templar challenge was figured out pretty damn quickly.
Going. Okay, we block TPs then.
It's not really a new challenge for the community either. It's just one that makes sense, especially when pit against contest enemies. On day 1 normal mode contests, that sounds like a weird sentence, there was already a lot to manage. But now with having to constantly block teleports, it meant that for a team to knock this one out, they would need to have full coordination and make good use of time management. Those Minotaurs and Oracles were something you could avoid on normal, but to block the teleports you'd need to be cleansed, or of course, you'd die. This one was chaotic as hell and a true test of day 1 challenge for the teams racing.
Shooting guys.
I'm middle, trapped.
I see the teleport. I can get it.
Please get me.
Keep going. Fuck Oracles. Ignore Oracles. Let's go.
Clear everything.
I got the teleport.
I have no ammo. I'm literally useless. Just kill. Yeah,
I got him.
Let's go. We're huge. Let's go, boys. Okay, grab chest and then let's go.
Moving on now to go. Yep, nothing here again. Moving on to the jumping. Okay, well, like, I guess moving on to this is where the race gets interesting, really. While Elysium held a very strong lead to this point, they would lose a lot of momentum at Gatekeeper challenge, and it's not really hard to see why. This challenge is clearly the most vague of all challenges in the raid. This one was theorized by Elysium in many different ways for what to do. Ideas of only one person being inside the portal at any time. Ideas of killing only the Minotaurs and baiting away the Wyverns. Ideas that keeping the Gatekeeper alive the whole time had to be it, right? Ideas just didn't seem to be working, and Team Elysium would wipe over 30 times in Gatekeeper, allowing for other teams to not only catch up, but to have less ideas to try. If this race had been a lap lead for Elysium before, it was now anyone's ballgame. If you know anything about, well, really any type of competitive scene, you know that momentum is always a big factor. With the right momentum shift, a team can rally from behind. A player can do the unthinkable. Mentally, momentum plays in and inches the player to either choke up and crack under the pressure, or it proves to be the ultimate quest of a player's mindset. For this race, teams had officially caught up, but did this phase Elysium?
Just when your dude spawns. So like my dude spawn, I got Wyvern.
Yeah, I got a shield.
I'll kill
after
him.
Gatekeeper, after
I'll
Gatekeeper
let you
spawns,
know.
we'll swap. After Gatekeeper
So
spawns, we'll swap.
Wyvern's dead.
Yep, we'll let you know when we're gonna swap.
Yeah.
Challenge failed already. Nobody had entered.
Did you kill the wyvern?
I killed it, yeah. Do we have to leave? No.
Don't kill the wyvern until the shield is down on the Minotaur.
Possibly.
It's possible because they spawn at the same time.
Maybe we have to kill the Minotaur and the Wyvern at like the same
Okay,
time.
let's try kill Minotaur, then kill Wyvern. Let's
Yeah,
try kill
so
Minotaur,
that-
then kill Wyvern.
Because we failed
Because that would
so
explain how we're
fast.
wiping before Gatekeeper.
Yeah. And Iron Thundercraft.
Right as others had caught up, Elysium finally, after 30 trial and errors, figured out what to do, and to be honest, it was a vague challenge. The challenge was all about killing the Praetorian shielded Minotaur at the same time as the Wyvern. But the struggle that Elysium faced was that the window of time to kill them was so massive that it led to Elysium not thinking that that was the challenge to begin with. Sometimes forgiving mechanics can be the most punishing. Anyways, after other teams had caught up, Elysium was now just barely ahead.
I'm thunder crashing.
Kill. Kill, 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 kill.
Kill. Nice! Finally, the timeline saved us. Okay, what do we think that the challenge is? What do we think that the challenge is?
Keep focus.
I don't know. Let's see what wipes us. Just go and do the.
So I was thinking about it. Like if you're inside, you can only shoot one oracle. That's the best thing I can come up with.
Like, you might only be able to break one set of oracles.
Here we are, back to Atheon, with teams from Silumar, Luminous, Tier 1, Redeem, and more all caught up now with Elysium. Was momentum lost, or was it reinvigorated for our first place team after spending over an hour at Gatekeeper? Nerves were strong for all of these teams, with the only raid race of 2021 on the final runway. Atheon Challenge was up next. Elysium was letting some of the nerves get the better of them at first.
Okay.
Close, mid, then far left.
No.
wasn't close mid.
Close was a bit on the left. You didn't see it. It was
Close
above
is
you.
like really
close
way up the
mid.
stairs. That's close left.
Bad.
It's fine. Like it was behind the tree. You couldn't see it from your perspective. But don't shoot the far one.
You're getting close left. I'm
Close
getting
left,
Salt's
close
getting
right.
I'm
far
so
left.
stupid.
It's okay.
Close left,
No.
close right, then far left.
Yeah,
Okay. Close right. Like
Close,
writing it.
close left, then close right, then far
Yeah.
left.
That's good. Are we fine?
Just close left, then close
Yeah.
right.
I'm just
Yeah.
dumb.
It
I'm
was
sorry.
close left, then
I got it.
Okay, that's fine.
I can chaos here
I'm
again.
just sitting on the left. I'm just gonna stay here.
I need fun.
Okay. 1 second. 1 second.
Take it, go, get out there.
I died trying to get back.
Fine.
It's Res Crews after the stuff are dead. Res Crews after
Yeah,
the stuff
just
are dead.
wait.
Don't
Just
spawn
clear
farm.
everything.
Do
You
not
got
spawn
tons
farm.
of time.
But Destiny had a plan for this clan after all.
Just kill him. 10 seconds. Nice. Let's go.
Let's go! We finally got it!
Keep the relic. Orbit.
Okay, orbit. Whoever's host orbit us. Whoever's host orbit us, then claim the triumph while we're going to orbit.
Go, 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 go.
I claim Temple's edge.
Claim the triumph.
My
Holy
game
shit.
is fucking lagging.
Let's go! To qualify for worlds first, you must complete. Yeah, okay. There's a chance. I know that there's a chance that another team could have beat it, but like, is there any other like big teams that are anywhere close to it? Like, pull up their streams now. Like, are there any other teams that are like close? Like, genuinely pull up their streams now. Is there any other team? Is there any other team? Like, I'm pulling up like anybody you can think of. Pull up their streams. See if they're still going.
Somebody in my chat just said we are first.
Any stream you can think of.
Atheon's challenge was simple to figure out, and with this team's relentless approach to bashing this boss down, and really this whole raid down, Atheon would only wipe them 2 times. The challenge here was to have one player from the teleported team shoot 1 oracle each. an easier version of Destiny 1's challenge of having all 6 players shoot at least one Oracle. So now, officially, the team of Kairos, Cruz, Slap, Moople, Quaz, and Saltagrepo had claimed world's first Destiny 2 Vault of Glass in a total time with both normal and hard mode of 4 hours, 13 minutes, and 21 seconds. Normal was 1 hour, 43 minutes, and 55 seconds for this team, while challenge was 2 hours and 28 minutes. Over an hour of which Gatekeeper came into play. If you look at the Raid Report website ranks, you can see just how close it was from the first to second, second to third, and so on. We're talking a 1 or 2 wipe difference here. That's how much the gap was closed after Gatekeeper. Congrats to Team Elysium. After second place in Deepstone Crypt for some of these guys, this was their redemption arc for a world's first. Just like Be Bold before, Elysium redeemed themselves. Speaking more on Elysium, I was actually able to have a conversation with the world's first team and talk about the raid some more. I can't show you the full interview here since it's a long one, but I am putting the full one up on Patreon if that interests you. I did ask them about the last world's first title compared to this one, which they said,
but yeah, I think we got the 17th in Garden, and then it was like, okay, I think we're like confident enough where we were gonna hope for like another like top 20 finish, maybe a top 10 if we play really well on the day. Then it's like getting to second, it's like, holy crap, we did really well. But at the same time, because it's second, it's like one wipe was the difference, and it's like because we're that close, it was almost like more, I think, irritating to me than if we would have got like third or fourth.
When asked about the team coming together, they said this.
From the beginning, we kind of just had this clan of like good players. There was no, you had to know someone to get in. We just posted in Big LFG like all those other clans, and we're just like, let's just find good players. Let's try them out, find good players. Eventually, we ended up getting better and better players. Me and Cruz have been playing together for over 2 years. I know Salt and Quaz have been playing together for a while. Kairos and Moople have been like duoing stuff for a while. And I think Quaz and Salt, after their second DSC, and Kairos, or Quaz and Salt were kind of making a good mechanically based team, at least as far as I was aware. And they went and contacted Moople, me, and Cruz, and were like, hey, do you want to go for the race on this one together? And I think everyone was just kind of like, yeah, we're all cool with that because we all recognize each other as just good players.
Finally, for the sake of this already long video, we'll keep it to only one more question, and that's for all of you watching that may want to compete in World's First races. I asked them just how people can get involved in it, which they responded.
Do you want to have fun or do you want to get the day one? Sadly, sometimes you can't have both, like in some scenarios. And you know, my first day one was Goss. I can say I did not have fun. It was a much more competitive and stressful experience, and I was willing to make that sacrifice to get the day one. Luckily, since then, it's been more fun and competitive at the same time. It's just something that you have to sacrifice and prepare for and really go for it. You can't just have like, you can, but not, most of the time you can't have like these IRL friends who are like, oh, you want to go do like a day one raid? I play Destiny like once a month, you know, let's go try this. It's like, it's probably not going to work out for you. But if you go on Big LFG and you find those people who are asking for 100 clears and have low man tags and all that stuff, that's probably like your better bet. And finding those kind of people is generally better for like a day one experience.
Once again, congrats to Team Elysium on a world's first victory. So guys and gals, that is the Vault of Glass on day one. And I know some of you are going to want to talk about the loot, but I already covered the loot back in the other VOG video. I guess what I'll say is that there's now random rolls and a spoils chest. There's a new perk called Rewind Rounds. Firefly is back, but the perk isn't centered on the screen. Seriously, centering is tough at Bungie HQ. And that not all the weapons came back, which was a weird choice for sure. The armor can get these really cool mods, even if there is no Age of Triumph armor. To be honest, I didn't really expect it. And the mods, for no real reason, exist. Except one that we'll talk about in a little bit. And the shaders are not chatter white. But there is one for getting all these hidden collectibles in the raid, which is kind of neat. I like it. There's also new chests in the raid, just like the entrance one being moved, and the one that's now at the jumping puzzle instead of being in the Galahorn spot. The Gorgon's room with Praedyth's dead corpse now needs 3 boxes shot open for the room to open a chest. And there's a rally flag in there to own these little Gorgons. Vex Mythoclast also makes its return as a final chest drop with really low chances, and what makes it pretty cool is that there's a catalyst quest shooting oracles throughout the raid, with the final place to get the catalyst in the portal back to the Whisper of the Worm mission. A great Easter egg for longtime players. I haven't got my hands on the Mythoclast, but I promise you I would have heard if it was anywhere near the power it used to be, so I think we all knew it was never going to live up to that glory again. Overall though, this is the place to be for the best loot in the game. Almost all the weapons in here are the best of their archetype, and I think Bungie knew that they were going to need to do that or people would be disappointed. I know I'll be farming loot for spoils in the chest again and again until I get the best rolls I can, and one day later in the season, a hard mode will be coming out for adept versions of the very same guns. So that'll be something to definitely grind. There is something else I need to talk about before we wrap up this already gigantic video though. So let's get over the amazing loot and just get right into it. It just wouldn't be Vault of Glass without a little bit of cheddar, right? Yes, just like in Destiny 1, this raid is full of bugs, glitches, cheese, and more. Let's just start with one that Bungie warned about going into the race. Pushing Atheon off of the map. Apparently, using a bug with the Stasis Warlock Super, a player could push Atheon off the map, something Bungie said would stop a team from getting worlds first. While I haven't really seen a team do this to Atheon, it's apparently possible according to Bungie Help's Twitter. Another fun bug is that if the player is to use Prometheus Lens or Colony on Gatekeeper encounter, they can skip the shield of Praetorians. Something that makes two-man Gatekeeper challenge possible, so I honestly hope they never fix this bug. Hey guys, it's me, Idiot, after getting back from recording this, finding out that they in fact patched this bug. Sick. Another one for Atheon is tethering a supplicant to Atheon, and placing a bubble down on Atheon's feet at the same exact time instantly kills Atheon. I don't even understand anymore. Finally, my favorite of the main cheeses is the same bug that happened with Atrax in Deepstone Crypt. Enemy storage. In Deepstone Crypt, if a player was to use the Salvation's Grip exotic grenade launcher to get out of bounds, there was a captain that had a lot of health on it. The reason for that was that captain stored all of Atrax's health. Don't ask me why this is a thing, I don't develop games. For Atheon, the same rules applied. If a player was to jump into the Venus portal during the end of the Gatekeeper encounter, when Gatekeeper ended, if that same player was to jump off the map and respawn in the Venus side, Atheon was just chilling by himself. Now, it doesn't count for an actual completion, but if you kill him, there's still loot ripe for the picking. So yeah, I just don't know what to think. Atheon's just chilling off in Venus in the off-season, I guess. I am also here to report, after coming back to this later, that in a patch that happened on Thursday before this video came out, Bungie fixed, well, all of these bugs. The cheese was fun while it lasted. This raid is as nostalgic with the loot as it is with the cheese, I guess. But there's also been some amazing challenges to cover as well. Some challenges, like 2-man of the whole entire raid, have been done by these Elysium guys, and Solo Templar has also been beaten on all 3 characters, with the first completion being done by a player named Faldo. I actually recommend doing a 3-person run of Vault of Glass at the very least, especially if you're into raids. It's just that little extra layer of challenge you might be looking for. Now, aside from the challenges and the cheese, there has also been some controversy in the Vault of Glass too. But since this video is already so long, we'll keep it quick. There's one controversy that you can hear more about on Patreon, and that is hot swapping or quick draw glitching. A lot of people have issues with hot swapping weapons, passing the normal swap speed we're accustomed to with slug shotguns. This is something I'm going to save for another video, but I'll give my quick take on this. I don't think hot swapping should go away, as all FPSs on the highest level have some form of this for players to do, and this is just as accessible on a controller as it is on a mouse and keyboard to learn. But now you remember why in my Vaulted Glass needs an update video, just what I meant. It's just something I see no issue with and lends to player freedom being even stronger. If you guys agree or disagree though, please let me know in the comments and keep it civil. Like I said, I have a video planned on this topic separate from this one, so just wait and see. The final controversy is one of monetization. After completing the Vaulted Glass, there was a silver or in-game monetized currency only offer of shaders. These won't be available to my knowledge for earnable currency and will only have to be paid for, even being bundled with transmog materials for money. Shaders just should never be sold for only money in my opinion. But I want to know where you guys stand on this controversy as well. Do you think this is okay, or do you think it pushes a line that players should push back against? I'd love to know what you think in the comments down below. Okay, wow, that is the Vaulted Glass on day one and some parts past it. We're gonna have to see how Master Mode plays out, but I am very happy with how this raid race went down. I think this was a good difficulty for a returning raid, and it surprised me how well this raid was done. So props to everyone at Bungie involved in making this happen. Since I know some people are going to ask me this, yes, I think this is the superior Vaulted Glass raid, but I would still have to rank it below my old Vaulted Glass rank. And I know that sounds weird, so let me explain. Vaulted Glass 2.0 is not a new raid, and Vaulted Glass 1.0 did so much for the game of Destiny that it gets a very high rank as a result. I still think Vaulted Glass 2.0 is the better experience, but Vaulted Glass 1.0, for what it did for the game, makes more sense to be higher up. Overall, this raid is a huge success for Bungie, and it really makes me wonder, if Vaulted Glass's mechanics were tweaked enough to make the raid interesting, does that mean King's Fall could return without all those plate mechanics? Crota without all the E's? Wrath of the Machine, well, that one is perfect the way it was. This also makes me think about how far raiding has truly come. And I have to think that at least some of you are interested in raid racing because of these videos, so thank you for all the support. And guys, until 2022, this is the last raid video. But that doesn't mean we don't have hundreds of community gaming stories to cover. Maybe even some zombie related ones in the future? We will just have to see. Atrax 1 merchandise with Color Splash will be available for 2 weeks from now using the links down below. This piece made by Nogi-san took months to come together and will be sold in very high quality t-shirts and hoodies. Prints were already available on Displate and will remain there. Don't miss your window for color, as black and white will be the only thing available after this period. Just like the See You Soon merch before. Alright, Patreon. Yeesh. This is something I thought about for a long time. YouTube just isn't sustainable for this channel to do the type of content I'd like to be producing consistently, between the almighty algorithm wanting me to post a video a day to the realization, as Donkey once said,
I'm over here struggling to put up 4 videos a month versus hundreds of other mega channels uploading 30 videos a month. Statistically, I cannot win. I don't even stand a chance.
Look, I just want to be able to sustain this type of content and only make it better over time. I did want to make sure though that it was worth it for everyone who joins, and not just, hey, give me money guys. I want to give you guys proper benefits. So not only will the 15th Wish video and my interview with the world's first team be there, but there are also some other benefits for Tier 1 and 2 members. Tier 1 members will receive all of these benefits that you see, and Tier 2 will get all of these benefits that you see. Thank you all for taking the time to watch this video, whether you're interested in anything there is to offer with Patreon or merch. Now that the raid video is done, there's only one thing left to say. Bloopers.
Oh, there we go, thank God.
Thank. We have to go back and do. Wait, my grenade just went through. Wait.
Yeah, some droids do that.
Why
are we joining?
What?
Which ally are we
I'll swap back to Nova after. Actually, I'll swap
now that I've been like consistently the well.
Yeah, because I was using it earlier and I was getting like.
Did you?
The box.
Who's got detained?
I got it. That's me.
My game crashed! Are you fucking joking?
Oh my god!
Dude,
Join as fast as you can. Join as fast as you can.
But we have a pretty good idea what Gatekeeper is, so if we can get through this quick, and then we can like think while you're taking a piss, and during those like time all stuff looking spots.